Hey guys, how you doing? It's Brad Sundberg in the studio with MJ. I'm here for another conversation with a really good friend of mine, a really cool and sweet guy. And some of you have met him. He's been kind of behind the scenes with Michael for many, many years, and I'm excited to introduce him to you. So, Mr. Michael Prince, thank you for joining me on our little conversation tonight.
Hey, thanks for including me. I've watched a few of them on your Facebook page, and they're really enjoyable. I haven't had the time to watch all of them all the way through yet, but I certainly watched a lot of Matt Forger, and that was wonderful.
Everybody loves Matt Forger. He did awesome.
He's a great guy.
Well, how you been? I mean, you're a newlywed. You're doing good. You look good.
I've been good, and like I hope a lot of people are around the world, staying home as much as possible. I've left maybe 8 times to go to the grocery store in the last, well, I guess it started around the middle of March. So I'm not even sure anymore,
Yeah.
It's like Groundhog Day, I know you're working, but I'm like, I wake up and of course, if I do work, it's right here. And people can send me tracks and I can mix them and send them back. And so that's working. Some of the bigger projects, have been put off till next year, which is understandable. I don't even want to get on a plane right now.
Right. And forgive me, but you got married 4 months ago?
I got married March 14th, May 14th. May 14th.
Oh, wow. Oh, you're going to get in trouble. Okay. Yeah, so it's only been a few weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 6 weeks. 6 weeks.
Wow. Well, congratulations. I'm happy for you.
I'm very happy.
Good. Well, a lot of people know you, or at least know your name. I know a big chunk of your story. We've had the privilege of spending quite a bit of time together. But take me back. Tell me who Michael Prince is and where you come from and your background.
I'm the son of a composer. I don't know if you know this, but my dad wrote a lot of songs in the 40s and the first part of the 50s. He wrote Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. He wrote Beat Me Daddy 8 to the Bar. He wrote songs for, Bing Crosby, Sammy Davis Jr., the Andrews Sisters. So I think I got some of my musical thing, just probably, sitting on his knee when he was playing piano when I was a little kid. But I always wanted to take piano lessons. But I only wanted to take him until I could start playing the stuff I could hear in my head. Like I didn't want, to have to, I had to play all this classical stuff and I'm going, but I'm not going to write classical stuff, but it's good training. But as soon as I was good enough to write songs,
right.
I pretty much stopped with the lessons. Same with guitar. I took guitar lessons until I went, all right, I can write songs, Couldn't play a solo to save my life, but I can play chords,
Okay.
And lived all over, born in New York, but lived all over the country and moved here in 74.
Were you born in New York City?
Yeah, Manhattan.
Really? I guess I'd forgotten that. Okay.
Yeah. And my parents had moved out here and I was coming out for a summer break. I was going to SMU in Dallas.
Okay.
And they said, well, what are you going to do this summer? Well, I'm going to come home, and it's because it's free. So I went home, and they had this thing called Musicians Contact Service, still around, but now it's all digital. And you'd go down there, and you'd have a little picture of yourself, and you'd write like on a 5x7 card, like a little bit about you, what instruments you play, what you own, what kind of music you like, and you'd put it there, and you'd see if somebody called you, So about I went to Europe for about 5 or 6 weeks, just bumming around. Then when I got back, I get a call from these guys. They're like, hey, we're starting a band, and we'd like to see if you like the music, And I went, okay, and I pissed them off right away because I go, well, hopefully one of you has a van because I don't have anything. I could put a Hammond and a Leslie and all that stuff in there, and I could hear the guy. Oh, not one of these guys. But anyway. Guy comes out in his van, somebody in the band had to have a van.
You have to have a van. Yeah.
Couldn't get to a gig. So they come out and then ended up
really what year would this have been? I'm just curious.
This would have been late 74.
Wow. Okay.
Late 74. And then Over the next year, we made changes that we got rid of the lead singer, wasn't really happy with him, got rid of the guitar player. And then by 76, we were opening like shows around Southern California for, you know, like Ted Nugent, Ronnie Montrose, Eddie Money, things like that. And finally got some management, got signed, and ended up doing, between then and 2005, 11 albums.
Wow.
Didn't make the kind of money Michael makes when he puts out an album, but it was a great education because I was always, you know, the engineer's sitting there and like, you know, you're there for the singer singing his vocals, the guitar player, your keyboards, everything. And the engineer's always doing this stuff. And then whenever he'd start a mix, he goes, I'd like you guys to leave for about 3 hours. Going, okay. And we leave and we come back. It sounds decent, you know, and I'm going like, what's going on in those 3 hours?
Yeah. What happened?
I started not leaving, you know, and I'm going like, well, what does that knob do? Because I mean, that mixer was foreign to me. You know, I know we all know what bass and treble is, you know, and what a fader, but I mean, you know, adding effects and running it through stuff. I mean, that was, to me, that was fascinating. Right. And I never really wanted to leave the studio, you know, it's, you know what I mean? It's like a Ferrari, you know, all the, well, blinking lights,
trust me, I get it.
BU meters. It's just, to me, it was like, wow, the guy sitting at that seat, he can make that thing sound amazing, or he can make it sound really terrible, you know? So, you know,
and he looks cool in the process and looks like he's flying a 747, and it's awesome.
Sure does. And then he puts it on the big speakers and you go, wow, you know, like, and sometimes it's just because it's loud, but over the years, I got more and more interested in it. And then,
well, hold on. Let's do a shout out. You haven't mentioned the name of the band.
Oh yeah. It's Legs Diamond. You know what?
Is the swag still for sale?
Is the what?
Is the swag for sale?
Well, I haven't had t-shirts available for years because I normally do it if we're going to go play some gigs. We're going to actually have some shows this April. They got canceled. Wow. Now they've been moved to October. They're going to get canceled.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not getting on a plane till we have some kind of cure or something. Right. But
you guys are you're still doing it. You still get together, and are you still friends?
Yeah. We were rehearsing. We were rehearsing in March. Okay. You know, getting ready for the gig, and all of a sudden, the guitar player comes and goes, "Hey, they postponed the show," and we're going, "What?" And it was really before everything, you know, kind of like, you know, you were told to stay home and all that kind of stuff. So it was like an eye opener for me. I go, "Wow, there's something going on," you know, because I was supposed to go to Germany and work on a project. China, I've had a couple meetings over there on some really interesting stuff that have now all been just, hey, we'll maybe see you in 2001. And I'm hoping, you know, just like, you know, I'd love to see your seminars get.
Well, I know. I was supposed to be in LA this week, and that's one of the reasons I'm doing this series. So it's frustrating, I guess, is one of 50 words I can use. So but I cut you off. I'm sorry. You started to say you started hanging out in the studio more and more during those days.
Hanging out in the studio more and more. I'd always lag behind and go, look, I want to be here for the whole mix, you know. And then I would go to mastering and all that stuff, and just learn about all the different, you know, steps. Slowly buying little pieces of equipment, and then in I think it was '92, I said to a friend of mine, hey, do you want to start a recording studio? Not even really like realizing, you know, what I was doing, but I knew, you know, between the two of us, we had enough money to buy a console. I had gotten some just, you know, inexpensive stuff. My first and only microphone back then was a AKG 414, you know, so it didn't matter what your voice sounded like, or if we were doing guitars, or if we're doing a sax. It was that 414.
You know what? You didn't know this, and I didn't know this. That was my first mic also.
Wow.
So that's a nice little connection.
it's a great microphone. I learned a lot from this one jazz pianist, and he tried out stereo pairs of just about every good mic he could find
Sure.
for his acoustic piano sound. He had like a 8-foot grand at his house. His name was Pete Robinson, and after all the testing, he goes, 2 AKG 414s,
Yep.
And so I said, well, if I gotta come up with 1,000 or more for one microphone, that's what I'm gonna get,
Yep.
and ended up realizing that my partner knew nothing about engineering, So I ended up doing 80% of the work. I mean, like I would start with, a client for a day or two, and then I go, hey, my partner's going to be here tomorrow, and then I would get a phone call and they'd go, please don't leave us with him again.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm going like, oh, great. There were some people that he got along with, but for the most part, it was, well, if you're a better engineer, they kind of want you, and I don't panic. And he would like, so, how sometimes if the tape starts doing something funny, you can either sit there and calmly go, let me get that. Or you can go, oh my God, the tape is coming off the reel. It's like, and then the people go, wow, this guy doesn't know what to do, and you scare the client. But ended up mixing all kinds of records for people and recording them too. I mixed an album for Los Lobos. Remember them?
Yeah.
There were a bunch of people back then. So by the time, this is now the fall of '95, by the time I started working with Michael, I was probably one of the better programmers for, I love sampling stuff. Like all my clients, I would go, hey, let's get your vocals in the sampler. And that way you sing them one time, because we didn't have Pro Tools. There was no copy paste.
Right.
And then I'd give them a keyboard and I go, whenever that chorus comes up, hit that button,
Right.
And so I got a phone call from a good friend of mine, Dave Wills. And he said, hey, there's this thing coming up in New York with MJ. And he goes, you're the only guy other than me, meaning him,
Right.
that I could think of recommending for this thing. Do you want to do it? And I'm going, well, how long is it? And because at that point I had 2 small children, so I didn't really want to like say, oh, see you later,
Right.
And he goes, I think it's 3 or 4 weeks. And
Right.
I went, okay, that sounds good. And he goes,
that's how they always hook you.
yeah. And he goes, you're going to get a call. I don't know who from. And about a day later, Brad Buxer calls me, and he's the same guy he is now. He was just so nice on the phone.
Yep.
And he goes, we've got this thing coming up and we've got, blah, blah, blah weeks of rehearsal. And then there's this show for 2 nights and they're going to tape it for television. I think it was for HBO. And I go, yeah. And then I think the next day or 2 days after that, I was on a plane. And it was a lot of fun. The first time I saw Michael, because first you have endless band rehearsals.
Right.
The dancers are rehearsing to a boom box. So you don't see anybody except the people in the band. And then at some point you start working with the dancers. And then we finally get to the Beacon Theater, and it's our first day with Michael Jackson. I'm going like, wow, this is gonna be mind blowing. And
now let me stop you there. Would you consider yourself to be an MJ fan?
I've always been a fan of pop music.
Okay. That's a good answer.
I love the Beatles. I love Chicago. I love all kinds of music, but the main thing is if it's got a good hook. Let me turn this volume on. If it's got a good hook, and you kind of want to sing along with it, I love that music. R&B, you name it.
Okay, so you're at the Beacon.
We're at the Beacon, and this is going to be the first day. I think we did a run through at the Beacon, with just the band and the dancers and all that stuff. And now Michael's going to show up. And the only Michael I knew up to then was the Michael in the videos,
Right.
tons of energy, talent just pouring out of him. And he walks on stage and he just looks like he's got the flu, you know, and he's talking sort of like this, all the kind of sentences end sort of going down. I'm going, what's wrong with him, you know?
Right.
And that show got canceled.
Hmm.
So that was my first experience, you know.
Did you interact with him at all? I mean, one
Oh,
on
no,
one, or
no. In the beginning, you're just I'm an employee, you
Right.
know. I'm a tech. I'm there to program, make sure things work. I talked to probably Brad and the then drummer Ricky Lawson.
Right.
I don't know if you remember Ricky.
Sure.
Great drummer. And so no, I mean I'm pretty much hunkered down in where I'm supposed to be, out of sight. And and I think the second or maybe third day Michael came, he just fell down.
Wow.
And all the security guys, you know, spread their coats out and we couldn't even see him, you know. And next thing you know, there's an ambulance pulling up to the Beacon Theater, and they take Michael out of there, and we're going, God, I hope he comes back tomorrow.
Wow.
And he didn't, you know. I guess his management told whoever was producing it that, you know, he was weak, needed fluids, and so we rehearsed for 2 more days, hoping that, you know, he'd come back. And then the guy goes, "Hey, sorry, we're all going home tomorrow."
Not gonna happen.
So that was my first experience, but I was so impressed with how professional everybody was.
Right.
And you know, when you've played in a band and had a one bus and one truck, and you do everything yourself, like I was, you know, the keyboard player, I was the accountant, I bought and sold the merchandise, all that stuff. And when you see how it's done at the real level,
yeah,
all these little lights go off, and I go, this is the level I'd like to stay at, you know.
Wow.
And we get home, have the holidays. I did a little bit of work with Steely Dan, and Ricky Lawson really wanted me to go on the Steely Dan tour with him. And I'm now calling Brad and thinking, you know, I love Steely Dan.
Oh, I do too.
And I mixed monitors for him for a couple of days, and just at rehearsals. And I really thought that if I can find out any information, like, is Michael going to tour?
Right.
Because remember, this is now 96. The History album, I think, had just come out.
A History album came out in 95.
Okay. Well, I mean, but there hadn't been a tour, you know, for the History album.
Right.
Nobody knew for sure if Michael was going to tour. Not in January, not in February. But I was calling, you know, Brad Buxer and a guy named Benny Collins.
Sure.
About every 2 or 3 days, you know, and going, have you heard anything? And finally, one of them, I forget who, said, yeah, he's going to tour. And I had to tell Ricky Lawson that I didn't want to go out and do Steely Dan with him. And he wasn't really happy with me when I told him that. But it was the best decision I ever made.
That's awesome.
Just, you know, learning, you know, learning the ropes, learning the system. I was John Moffat's tech for most of the History tour. Then I became Brad Buxer's tech, and then by the probably the year after the History tour, I started doing all the playback. Because Brad had, luckily, a lot of faith in me, and so did Michael. Again, I still don't know Michael well yet. You know, I've maybe said hello to him a few times, but you know, at that point, I'm a worker bee, and I, you know, do your job, stay out of the way, don't make any noise. And as soon as the History tour was over, you know, Brad said, would you like to start working on this new album we're doing? And I went, yes, of course, you know. And then we literally 3 days after the tour was over, we have all the stuff set up at Brad's house, and we're starting to work on songs that are, you know, Michael and Brad's ideas, you know, songs that, you know, I still have on hard drives, you know.
It's I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's funny. It's a peek into Buxer's personality. You've been on the road what for? How long was the history tour?
Well, it was 96 and 97.
14, 16 months, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Most people would be like, all right, I'm going to the Caribbean for 3 weeks. You know, the do not disturb sign is up. Buxer is just like right back at it. Let's go work on some songs. So
well,
anyway,
you know, Buxer was one of maybe the only person that turned being Michael's musical director into almost a full-time position, because Michael was always working on music,
right.
You know? So the tour could be long, it could be short, but Michael really enjoyed writing songs with Brad. I'll call it collaborating, because anything Michael could think of, Brad could play.
Yeah.
And Brad was a great listener. I've worked with some other people with Michael that frustrated Michael. I won't mention any names, but you know, with Brad, Michael could say, can you play that? Can you change here? Can you go to a different thing and play something else? And Brad would just start playing, and Michael would go, oh, I like that, you know? And some other players would act like they couldn't hear him because they wouldn't really know, what does he mean play something else, you know? So
they had a good connection.
They got each other.
Yep.
And then eventually, you know, we got each other when I really started going to, you know, to the ranch, you know, to work with both Brad and Michael, and got to go to almost all the sessions for the Invincible recordings.
Okay,
I wasn't there 100% of the time. I was there at least 50% of the time.
Okay, so where was Invincible? Was mostly in Miami, is that right?
We ended up in Miami, but we actually started at the Record One.
Oh, okay.
Very first studio.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's where Rodney was set up. Okay.
So and we had already had probably 6 or 8 songs to begin working on, and then Rodney comes in with this crew that just stays up 24 hours a day, and you know, they had probably, you know, knocked out 10 or 15 songs in the next 2 weeks.
Right.
But they knew that was a chance of a lifetime, you know, and they seized it, and that's what they should have done. And so we started at Record One. We were there for a while, and then we went to the Hit Factory in New York, and I was probably there a third of the time. They'd fly me in for a week to do some programming and, you know, maybe, you know, some little comp mixes and stuff, and then I'd fly home. And then from there, they brought it back to LA, and we went to John McClane's studio at Marvin's Place.
Okay.
For a short while, because it's a one-room studio, and they didn't have a runner, so they didn't have somebody to go get food for them, things like that, and that frustrated a few of the people, not me. And they called the record plant, because now they go to the record plant and start with at least 2 rooms and get them going, you know?
Right.
And
so now you're deep in the mixing, or still doing final overdubs?
Well, we're still writing. And
wow.
I mean, this album went from the fall of '97 until it came out in, I believe, the fall of 2001. I don't remember exactly when we went to Miami, but Miami was great. You know, it was.
I mean, that's where Bruce did most of the mixing at Criteria, right?
Yeah.
Criteria.
Yeah. That was definitely all mixing, as far as I remember. You know, Bruce was in a room. Rodney had an engineer named Stuart Brawley who did some of the, I don't know if he did all of the final mixing. And then of course, Teddy was there with his bus, you know, which had a console in it and stuff like that. I never went in the bus. I always wanted to go in that bus just to take a look at it. but it was out in the parking lot, and that's Criterion, of course. Well, the
Yeah,
old
yeah.
Criterion Studios. Great place, and we got to stay in this awesome hotel on the beach, you know, and
Nice.
Seth was there every morning. You know, we'd go down and have breakfast with Seth, you know, and
Sure.
then
So Michael's still doing final vocals.
he is doing final vocals, and that just reminded me of that because
Right.
yeah, why would Seth be there?
So I want to zero in on one song. I've had every guest just kind of nail down one song, and I'm intrigued to hear what yours is. So what song did you choose to talk about?
I chose Hollywood Tonight, which was actually written for Invincible.
Right.
I didn't have time to go look at dates on hard drives, but I'm pretty sure that song came to life in 98 or 99.
Okay.
Because I remember working on it both at Brad's house and up at Michael's ranch. I'm not sure. I think we worked on it at Marvin's place as well.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's where Michael did at least the lead vocal, and the backgrounds, we believe it or not, did up at the ranch.
Really?
Michael loved singing in the bathroom at the
dance studio.
He
Right.
loved the echo. You'd point the mic into the shower, and Michael would stand there, and then he would adjust, you know, like how much reverb he wanted on his voice. And of course,
Wow.
you know, if there was too much on it, then we'd say, Michael, you know, this is just a scratch vocal, right. You know, but they were supposed to be scratch vocals for the most part anyway. I mean, we were using
Right.
good equipment, but every once in a while he'd go, God, I really like that vocal. And so we tried to get him to move a little bit out of that shower, you know, and he did.
Take me through the process of how the song started, and you worked a lot on that song.
Yeah, I mean, all of the songs basically started with Brad and Michael. I'm doing some of the engineering, or most of the engineering. I'm making sure everything keeps working. The nights I'm not there, I'm being told I have to sleep with a phone on my chest, because if Brad and Michael are working at 3 a.m. and Brad can't figure why this keyboard isn't talking to that, you know, that module, phone goes off, or hey, Pro Tools stopped working.
Right.
And so I used to keep right behind me. I pretty much had almost everything that was up at the ranch, you know.
You had
so
a duplicate.
I would run down and I'd go, okay, Brad, go to menu, go down to, and I would do it with him, you know, because you can't remember everything. Right. You can remember a lot, but you can't remember everything. So that helped a lot. And but everything started out with Brad on his MPC. At that time, it was probably an MPC 3000, which was, you know, the
big brother to the 60,
the child of the MPC 60. It did a lot more, had a lot more sample memory in there, so you could put tons of drum sounds in there. Right. And Michael loved that, because Michael liked, Brad could put 16 snares up there, and Michael could, I like that one. Okay, that's the snare. And
so Brad, can I stop you there? Just ask a quick question. Sure. So I listened to Hollywood Tonight today. Does that make sense? And the first thing that popped into my head is, why do these drums sound so much like Billie Jean?
You want me to talk about that?
That's why we're here.
Hollywood Tonight had an interesting, you know, like kick that wasn't really, it didn't really jump out at you, and the snare, because there were a lot of other little percussive things in there. So we're jumping ahead now to 2000. Was it 9 or 10? 2010.
Because there's multiple versions of it, right?
Well, it's actually the same version, but what I did was I did some, once I found out that they were interested in putting it on the Michael album, I took some of Michael's harmonies and copied them to other places where it made sense, like on the outro, you know, you hear this repeating 3-part harmony, which was really just originally one line in the second verse.
Right.
And so that worked really well. And then I'm sitting there listening because I'm getting ready to send it to I think it was to Teddy Riley,
Okay.
and I'm going, this really doesn't have a great kick or snare. So I went to Billie Jean and I got the kick and snare.
Seriously, you just lifted it.
Yeah, I put the kick and snare from Billie Jean in there, but I didn't turn it up in the mix. I had it way down in the mix. My hope was that Teddy would kind of hear it, because that when you hear that kick and snare with that bass sound, dun, 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 it's Billie Jean-ish, I would never say anything's as good as Billie Jean, but it had that vibe.
No, and it's I think it's a cool, it's kind of, I guess you'd call it an homage. I mean, I think it's a cool little reflection.
So I thought that's what it was missing, and put that in there, and Teddy heard it, and I'm glad he used it.
Good.
And that's the one beef I have about a lot of the producers that were used on Michael's posthumous albums is they tended to just keep the vocals and do all new music. I think the word they came up with was contemporizing.
Right.
Like trying to make it sound like the songs today, because that song was written, for Invincible.
Right.
And actually, once we really started working in the studios, by the time we got to Criterion, nobody even mentioned Hollywood Tonight. So it didn't make the cut of the, the 12 or 13 songs that were going to hopefully be on the album.
Right.
But a lot of songs didn't, a lot of songs didn't. He did a lot of songs with, he wrote Poison for Belle Biv DeVoe. I just can't think of his name right now. We started with, songs that Michael and Brad were working on and songs that this guy was working on, and literally had 15 songs ready to go when Rodney came in.
Okay.
Dr. something.
Dr. Freeze.
Dr. Freeze. Freeze had at least 6 good songs, pretty much done, except for Michael's lead vocal. And then when Rodney came in, a lot of Freeze's stuff just stopped getting played, stopped getting worked on. I don't know if he had a song on Invincible or not. I'd have to really go look at the tracks. I think he had a song on the Michael album.
Okay.
I think. I'm not like, I didn't do a whole lot of research for this.
And I like that. I didn't either. I mean, I literally listened to the song 2-3 times today, and no, I just want to talk about it. So, so you started it for Invincible, and did you do most of the vocals with Michael, or did Bruce, or do you remember?
No, I did most of the vocals. There were 1 or 2 sessions at Marvin's room. I wasn't there. It was John McLean's engineer, and I haven't seen him in 10 years now, so I can't think of his name, but a good engineer. He recorded some of the vocals, and Brad did all the music.
Sure.
Except for, the original version had no guitar. That's one thing that was added in 2000, I think 9 or 10. A guitar player put just a great funky little guitar. We were looking for like a David Williams kind of guy.
Yeah.
And we got close. Close. It's hard to get as good as David Williams.
Yeah.
And I think Sony really wanted to make sure that they included songs that Michael was actively working on. And we did start working on that song in late 2008 and early 2009 with Michael. But now Brad is now flying airplanes.
Right.
And Michael brought in a guy named Ron Feemster. And Ron started replacing a keyboard part with another keyboard part. And I think with Ron, we got a guy to play the guitar. It was one of Ron's friends. And then,
Now, I'm sorry, Michael, would these have been like the Vegas sessions?
no, these were here in LA.
Okay.
These were after, Michael first moved to the Bel Air Hotel, and we did some vocals there with Michael.
Okay.
And then when we got to the house the beautiful house in Beverly Hills he was living in, we set up a studio. I set up a studio in the pool room, which is a pretty good sized room, pool house. And it was there that we recorded the guitar for Hollywood Tonight and a couple other songs. And this guy was really good. And Michael had a lot of good ideas for the guitar. He goes, can you put some tape on the end of the strings? Can you make them muted? Can you, and I'm going like, that's good input, because
awesome.
he wanted that David Williams sound, because Dave would just put his hand on there,
Right.
So we did all kinds of stuff. We put tape on there. We tried putting foam rubber underneath the strings down by the bridge, all that stuff to get the sound that Michael wanted. And when we started working on the album, I remember they first picked Nephew. That was his nickname, to be the producer. And so Nephew came here, right where I'm sitting now, and we worked on that song for a week, just, switching out keyboard parts, trying a different string sound, doing a few things. I think he was chosen to do, let's say, it's either 3 or 4 tracks on the Michael album.
Okay.
And these were all songs that I'd been working on with Michael. Ron came in, starts replacing, keyboard parts, string parts, stuff like that. And
I'm sorry, I hate to keep interrupting, but just for the chronology, how long was this after Michael had passed away?
I'm guessing it's like the summer of 2010.
Okay.
And I remember Ron calling me and going, hey, we've got to do these songs for this Michael album. I went, okay. And we worked on most of them right here. And we worked on all of them right here. And they liked all of them pretty much. I mean, you get input from the label, a lot of input. Sure. They go, it's close, but it's still missing something, that kind of thing, and at some point, they've got Teddy, unbeknownst to me, working at a studio, I believe it was in Glendale. Okay. And he's working on what is now infamously known as the Casio songs.
Okay.
And I don't know anything about this. I don't know where he is. I'm starting to get contacted by his secretary going, can you get us, because I guess they thought maybe Hollywood Tonight should be handed off to Teddy at some point. Okay. Can you get us Hollywood Tonight, all the tracks, and that's when I go, okay, let me spend some time on this thing. And I already spent time, but that's when I put the kick and snare in there.
Okay.
Because I just felt that was the one thing that was really missing. And so I'm thinking they're in New York or God knows where, because Teddy's originally from Virginia Beach.
Yeah.
And so I'm getting everything ready and I'm getting the hard drive. I go, okay, this is all email, right? I've got the hard drive ready. Where do you want me to, to send it? Because, with Michael, you do a lot of those, overnight things and have couriers take it and stuff like that. So I'm figuring that's what this is going to be. And so I get this thing back and she goes, well, where are you? I go, well, I'm out in Santa Clarita. She goes, we're in Glendale. I went, what? I go,
the left hand not talking to the right hand.
I can be there in an hour, you know? And so I bring the hard drive down there, and I've met Teddy before. So, big hug and all that kind of stuff. And he puts it on And I don't know what's going on. I don't know what songs he's working on. And he comes up to me, he goes, finally, something I know is Michael.
Wow.
And I just kind of let that go over my head because I don't know what he's talking about. So I went, cool. So, well, if you need me for anything, just let me know, because he had a great engineer, Jean-Marie Horvat, who was working with him. And so I head home, you know, and then I heard Teddy's mix and I liked it. I mean, of course, he replaced almost everything Brad did on that song, you know, but that's what the producers want to do. They want to make it theirs, you know, and they want to use their favorite piano sound and their favorite string sound. And I remember Teddy did bring in a different guitar player, and I was there for those sessions. And you know, after the guy got done, I go, Teddy, that first guitar we have on there is just funkier. And it was. So that's the one we used. But I won't even go into later on when they were, you know, we were having meetings about, well, is this Michael or is this not Michael? You know, and I've had people at your seminars say, well, is Hollywood Tonight Michael? Well, of course it's Michael, you know, and all the songs I worked on, I was working with Michael, you know, so.
Well, and you know this.
Go ahead.
You've sat next to me in plenty of my seminars. And I'm glad you're talking about the Michael album. I got no dog in this fight at all, but it's an album that I think a lot of fans fully dismiss, really don't care for, and I'm not saying that you're defending it on a grand scale, but at least this song, you're saying that this is Michael. It's Michael's vision.
Mm-hmm. And there's a few, I mean, that I know of because I worked on them. There's a song called Best of Joy.
Sure.
A Michael song that I think probably goes back to the, you know, the Bad or the Thriller sessions, you know, that, you know, Brad did all the original, you know, keyboard, drum programming. Nephew redid everything on that song as well, except kept all the vocals. Michael had just re-sung that song at the Bel Air Hotel.
Wow.
You know, we had some days where it was just him and me, and he just, again, microphone in the bathroom, you know, and I'm going like, wow, we're cutting vocals. At that time, I thought it was for a demo. You know, we're just making the demo sound better. We also we worked on another couple songs that are yet to be released. Most of the fans know about
people are banging on their computers right now going, come on, Prince, spit it out.
Oh yeah. I was doing some interview for a podcast, and somebody mentioned some song that they'd heard about and blah, blah, blah. And I go, well, let me see if it's on my computer.
Oh, that's a terrible idea.
I went, and I went, there it is right there. And so I played about 10 seconds of it on my speakers. I said, but you can't record this. And they didn't use it. They were really good about it. And it's still like this mystery song. It's a Rodney Jerkins song, and it's a badass song.
Okay.
You know, I don't know why that hasn't come out. I have no idea why.
All right. So, and you and I talked about this before I started recording, and I've got no secrets from anybody. Yeah, I don't really want to talk about, you know, vocals in question, or, you know, it's not something you were involved in. Not something I was involved in.
Yeah. To me, that's political. And I know Frank Cassio, and I've met his younger brother. They're wonderful people, and I wasn't there.
Right.
You know, I wasn't in New York or New Jersey, wherever they recorded those vocals. And I don't want to, you know, say anything bad about anybody. I think, well, I'd like to just keep things positive, and, you know, but it would be sad if the really thought that all those songs on that record weren't Michael.
Exactly. And again, it's like I said, I got no dog in this fight. I'm not trying to but I do think there's something about today's mentality of if somebody says the wrong thing, tweets the wrong thing, whatever, then we just throw everything out. And I'm like, well, don't be quite so quick. So I'm glad you're giving this song maybe it's credit.
And you know, it's the only song that was released as a single, and it's the only song that Sony did a video for.
Yeah,
which are pretty darn good.
Yeah, no, it's I almost said it's a cute video, and that's not fair. But no, I think I watched the video a couple times today, and it's a well done. Certainly not up to a hardcore Michael video, but it tells a story.
But there's a backstory on that video. That the girl that is the star of the video and does the dancing.
Yep.
She was there for the dance auditions for the This Is It tour.
Okay.
And she was one of the girls. And if you watch the movie, you can see where you see Michael and Kenny pointing at people.
Right.
And that girl's on stage and they mention her name and she does this. Because they had asked, if you're under contract to anybody else for a tour, please don't come. So this girl was already contracted to do the Madonna tour.
Right.
And so it made me feel good to see them use her for this video because Michael picked her.
Yeah.
That's
very sweet.
There's a funny story when we were working on This Is It just a week after the dance rehearsals, because we're still talking about all the dancers. And then, I think Kenny told Michael, well, yeah, we can't get her if she's under contract to Madonna. And then Michael said, I used to date Madonna. Do you want me to call her? And Kenny goes, no, Michael, well, we've got some other good people that we can choose from. But Michael was, that's Michael,
Yeah.
He was, maybe he could have called her and Madonna would have said, sure.
Yeah, maybe he was a little smitten. Who knows?
Yeah. She was a good dancer. So anyway, that's the girl who stars in the Hollywood Tonight video.
Yep, does a good job. When's the last time you? I know this story, but if you don't mind sharing it, when's the last time you talked to Michael, saw Michael?
Well, he and I had a private meeting in his dressing room the night before he died. It happened usually about twice a week. He would ask me to come to his dressing room and we would just sort of talk. Sometimes we just talked about his kids and how much he missed them, and sometimes we would talk about what we were going to do when we got to the UK and when we started doing shows. And that night we talked about several, changes he wanted to make in the show, but we also talked about like the next day or the day after that, he was going to start singing, full out, because he really was holding back. All the video you see of This Is It, Michael's sort of half singing. It's kind of like the Lakers when they're not before the playoffs,
right?
It's really more camera blocking and, oh, you want to come out over there and you want to walk over to that side of the stage and then you meet the dancers and all that. So he wasn't really like belting anything or giving it his all. And his plan was to sing 90% of the vocals.
Okay. At
least 90%.
Okay.
So we were looking forward to that. But we had a really good talk that night. And the talk I had with him before that, because I could see how hard he was working. And I said, you know what, Michael? I go, if it was just the band and you with one spotlight,
yeah,
the audience would be happy. And he got a big smile on his face. And I really believe that. That's how energetic and magnetic and talented he was. He wanted, and he was building the biggest, best show he had ever, put on stage. More props, more gags. It was going to be amazing. But in all honesty, I think the fans would have been happy with a great band and some some dancers and just Michael standing out there with the microphone.
I make this joke, and I make it, with full respect. I won't even name another pop star because that's not fair. But I do love pop music, and I go to shows when I can, and I see the show and the staging, and it's crazy and off the chart. But it lacks that, the person that might be performing sings the songs and does the moves. But I've said, Michael could have sat on a bale of hay and, with a mic and somebody with an acoustic guitar, and you'd be absolutely mesmerized.
I agree. And that's what I really wanted to tell him. It was from my heart. And I felt like he probably, I'm sure he knows this, but I want to say this to him just so he knows there's no pressure on you. You're so talented,
yeah.
That you could just sit on that bale of hay with one spotlight and a microphone, and the audience would have come for forever.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome that you had a chance to, pass that on. I know, people are watching, and, they're going to be throwing questions. Brad, why didn't you ask this? Why didn't you ask that? I want to try to keep it focused on the one song, and whether you like it or not, when I come back to LA next year, I'm dragging you in, and I want to spend some more time with you. What do you take away from the whole thing? You spent so much time with him. What do you do with that?
Well, I think the big takeaways are how things are supposed to be done, how things can be done when you have a budget. And, it's not, show business is not about money, but, the movies that have the biggest, like say battle scenes or chase scenes, they had to spend money for that.
Sure.
Michael had to spend money to do things that I could never dream of, like these amazing choirs, Andre Crouch and having real string players come in, things that you can only dream of as just a regular old rock guy that maybe is lucky to sell 100, 200,000 records. You can't do that. They'll go, hey, here's 50,000, go make a record, Oh, and by the way, your manager wants 20% of that 50,000. Oh, now you have 40,000. Okay.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that's how it is. But it was so incredible to see how things are done when they're done right.
Yeah.
And all the people that you get to work with that we're still friends today. We have, you're in there, and that as well. We'll call it the inner circle. We call it the family, and everybody's a good, nice, kind, clear-headed person, and you don't bring your ego in with it. And, if you need me to stay up for 2.5 days, I can do it. Don't like doing it, anymore, but I can do it, or I could do it. And, it was such a wonderful family experience. I remember once I brought my wife and kids up there, and Brad and I were working on a song, and it was only a couple hours work theoretically. And then I remember going out there, and there's my wife just talking to Michael. She'd been talking to him the whole time,
I'm sorry, this is at Neverland.
Yeah, Neverland. Yeah. Worked up there a lot, got to stay in the bungalows a lot. And, and sometimes it was just.
Tell people what the Michael Jackson breakfast is.
Well, I probably don't even know, because I always made my own.
Okay. I'm sorry. What was the Michael Prince breakfast? I'm sorry.
Well, I would, you look at that little menu and you call the whatever extension for the kitchen, and I would just get 3 scrambled eggs and some bacon and some toast and some coffee, and it was awesome. You know what I mean? You can't even explain how cool it is, and then you're working, and Brad would go, you want some lunch? Sure. And then we ate really healthy up there. We really did. Michael ate the healthiest of anyone. He would have, a salad with vinegar and oil and a chicken breast on it, you know? I mean, I've heard stories about, he's had, KFC and stuff like that, but I've never seen it.
Okay. Yeah, he would munch a little bit in the studio, but not too bad. So, all right, my friend. Any final thoughts? It's so good seeing you.
Well, just that the time is flying by fast, and I think we need to continue to share what a great person he was, how talented he was, and all the gifts that he left us with. They're like diamonds on a bracelet or a necklace. All the songs, all the short films, the interviews that he's done, and we're so blessed to be a small part of that, and to be near and around that creative genius for the time that we were able to be there.
Yeah, man, I could not have said it better myself. So, well, thank you for hanging out with me for a little while. I can't wait to see you again. Hopefully next June. I'm going to book my flight.
I am hoping.
But I kind of like I wanted you to do. I don't dwell too much on his passing. I mean, you can't ignore it. But man, I'd rather celebrate you and celebrate the music and share some little insights.
Oh, and I think that's what you've always done, on June 25th is, it's a horrible day. I mean, I still remember just being in a zone. Like, I still went back to my Pro Tools and finished all the things that I had made a list of changes to make when I got there, even after we knew Michael had passed away. And now I'm just kind of walking around, and I finally went to the production office, and the production guy was Bugsy. And I go, Bugsy, I don't know what to do. And I was serious. I was like in kind of, I want to say shock or something. I don't know. But he goes, Michael, you need to pack up your stuff and go home.
Right. And
that was like somebody just hit me in the head with a sledgehammer, and I went, packed up my stuff, and I just drove home. It was really hard to believe that he wasn't going to walk in that room in another hour.
Right.
That phone would ring sometimes, and you'd look down there and it would say unknown or something like that. And you answer it, and it's Michael, and, when can you come up to the ranch? And I remember one time I was driving my daughter. She was probably like 8 or 9 at the time, her and her girlfriend to school. So they're sitting in the back seat. I'm taking them to school, and the cell phone rings, but it's hooked up to the Bluetooth in the car and stuff. So I answer it. It's Michael. Yeah. And so he's talking about, when I come up there, he'd like me to show him how to use this new Korg keyboard he had just gotten, maybe teach him a few little things and how to change sounds. And I said, I'd love to. And so we said goodbye. And then my daughter's girlfriend goes, was that Michael Jackson? I go, yeah, that was Michael Jackson. And they go, wow. Because, I mean, come on, Michael Jackson calling you. I mean, that's pretty cool.
How old was your daughter? Approximately.
I want to say she was like 8 or 9.
That's awesome. Oh, that's hero dad status times 10.
Well, she got to go on stage with him the whole time we were in Europe. Here, I'll grab.
Sure, go ahead.
It's in my office.
Love it, love it, love it, love it.
That's from the history tour, and she was a character. We did 2 shows in London, and she'd already been on stage with him. You know how he picks up somebody for Heal the World, right? And so we did 1 show in London. We had the next night or 2 off, and so I remember, we were in our room, and she comes up and, Daddy, I look down, she goes, am I dancing with Michael Jackson tonight? I go, no, we're off. You're off tonight. She goes, okay. And then she went back and watched TV, but she was really precocious, really precocious.
That's okay. All right, my friend. You look good. You sound good. thank you so much for hanging out.
My pleasure. It's great seeing you.
Like
You're looking healthy. Stay healthy. Be safe.
I will, and absolutely the same to you. And we will talk soon.
We will see you on the other side of this thing.
Absolutely. Thank you,
All right.
Michael.
Love you,
Have a
Brad.
good day. Take care.